about 15 minutes long.
Yeah, well, that's a question for people like that.
Will you please quiet for
Specify it. That doesn't mean it's not an adherent principle.
I was just saying we're going to get started, so it's going to be about a 15-minute panel, you know, and we won't cut anyone off in the middle of an answer or anything like that. So let her rip, give her.
Okay. Awesome. Someone gonna pick like who wants to ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to ask you actually, talking about how we're like eventually going to have a vegan whole North America.
If you could speak louder so we can all hear, that'd be great.
Sorry. Well, like in the next 60 years, your belief was that we will have vegan society, vegan world. How about people that talk about how they'll think it's very unnatural to make your products from cells? Like that's the questions I get. Like they think, ooh, it's like you're actually making meat from cells instead of. They say, oh, you know, we can go to a farm. And my mother, for example, will go to the farm. It's humane, and they're looking out in the grass, and it's like, you know.
Well, I think that objection is specific to clean meat in particular. I don't know if we'll have that objection to plant-based meats. For example, the Beyond Meat sausages downstairs. I don't know if many people are going to say this is unnatural and that's why I won't eat it. But the other flip side of the coin is look at how unnatural the current process is. Look at how chickens are raised today compared to how they were raised 50 years ago. And I also think that there's going to be so many regulations, so many regulatory bodies, including the meat industry. If you look at Cargill and Tyson, they're actually doing their own clean meat technologies at the moment. So we will have so many safety factors put in place before it actually comes to the mainstream market.
I'll throw something in on that. So, I mean, obviously you can also just say from a philosophical angle, I mean, why would you care if it's natural or not? Like vaccines are not natural. I mean, you probably want those. There's lots of things that aren't natural that are probably good, and there's lots of things that are natural that are bad. But just from a persuading people point, one thing to remember is that once the clean meat companies actually really get going, they're going to be putting out marketing, right? Like they're going to change the zeitgeist around how people view clean meat. Right now it sounds weird, like freaky, like scientists in lab coats, like making us things in test tubes. But the marketing is probably going to focus around things like this is cleaner. It's not raised in its own feces, you know. And once those memes are out there, people are going to find it more appealing, most likely.
100% agree.
I was just going to make a comment. It's just like test tube babies were weird and unnatural. And now it's, you know, it's common.
Yeah, it's always changing. And what's considered normal was different from what's considered normal today. It's always constantly changing.
And I mean, you can also ask, like, what is natural even supposed to mean? Like, there's a sense in which everything's natural. I mean, if we actually mean man-made versus non-man-made, I don't think we'd want to say man-made things are bad. Like, I mean, what clothing is this bad? Do we all want to be naked? What about, like, you know, glasses? Don't we want to see?
Toothbrushes.
You know, those are good. Yeah.
Yeah, so not much of a question, but a comment that hopefully will open up more discussions. And just 2 quick points, like I think they're related. The first one is just echoing what Gabriel was saying, like politics is very important, but in Canada, in our context, because of the way that powers are balanced between the federal government and the provincial government, a lot of times the provincial politics are actually more important. So if you look at what the Ford Conservatives have done, just the bad things for animals here, right here in our own province in Ontario, they have weakened significantly the Endangered Species Act, and they are now proposing this thing where they're going to allow developers to potentially pay to kill animals that are in their way of, you know, putting up new buildings and stuff like that. And another thing that they have done is they have actually Maple Leaf Foods. Many of you probably saw recently. They actually they constructed a new $300 million facility in Indiana that is focused on producing plant-based protein. But right here in Lyndon, Ontario, they're opening a new mega chicken slaughterhouse, and that's receiving $34-point-something million directly from the Conservative government here. And so if people are interested, there is a campaign called Stop Maple Leaf Violence. You can look them up on Facebook. So they are activists working on that issue. And so related to that is, I think, if we want to advance politically, if we want to advance animal rights issues politically, we also need to think more about building coalitions. And what that would mean is we need to work and get respect of and be respecting of people who are working on progressive issues. And so, you know, we can't be, you know, doing stuff and saying stuff that are like, considered oppressive, against already marginalized and vulnerable groups of people. Because if we keep doing that, if all we're doing is like, we only care about animals, but we don't care about human issues or human rights, that's just going to alienate and marginalize more people, right? And we need to be careful about what we say, what we do, so that we can build that coalition. I have some leaflets here. It's from the campaign Fight for $15 Minimum Wage and Fair Working Conditions. So if anybody's interested, this is more for workers' rights, because that would have basically destroyed a bunch of stuff that was won on behalf of workers.
Just to build on that point too, thanks to Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I would say the #1 issues for the Democratic Party in the US now are healthcare and climate change. So I don't need to explain to you guys how animal rights connects with climate change. We don't need to pretend like we care about that. We obviously care about that. And even when it comes to healthcare, the #1 cause of death in the United States is heart disease. 600,000 Americans dying a year from heart disease. You can imagine how many billions of dollars it costs to treat all those people. So, when Bernie Sanders is struggling to say, or struggling to persuade people that it's right to have universal health care and how are we going to pay for it, we'll say, well, universal health care is going to be a hell of a lot cheaper if there's fewer people dropping dead from heart disease. We can save lives, we can save money. So yeah, we care about humans. This is good for everyone. It's good for the animals, good for the planet. So, and I agree. Like if you meet someone halfway or meet them 100% and say we agree, we care about that, they're way more inclined. And this goes back to persuasion too. I think that it is a smart tactic. Maybe it's more psychology than logic to agree with someone. Say, okay, yeah, you got a point. Sorry, I don't want to answer to change the subject, but I just want to back up what you said about the hierarchy, because I know that's controversial to a lot of people. Hierarchy is a bad word to a lot of people, including me in a lot of contexts. But I would say that makes our point stronger, because we already agree that plants, fungi, viruses, and bacteria don't have the same moral value as animals. Why? Because they can't suffer. Animals can suffer. So we have to tell the truth. Yes, mammals can suffer, and birds and mammals have more complex brains. They can suffer more than insects. So we can recognize their hierarchy and still say, hey, we're not going to kill insects. There's no need to kill insects if you don't have to. But a more practical choice is if a horse's life is versus a fly that might kill that horse, then come on. We have to recognize that the horse is capable of more suffering and pleasure than the fly, and its life's going to be longer. So, yeah.
Is there anyone here who actually thinks that all life is equal? Okay, I'm curious. Yeah?
I felt that since I was a child. So I even feel that I felt that inanimate objects actually, because I worry, I say maybe we're just not sophisticated enough to comprehend it. But anyway, that's all.
You tell me if you gotta stab me or the couch.
Oh no, listen, this is just something that's just kind of, yeah, I don't go around, well, I guess I shouldn't have admitted it. I just have such an empathetic personality.
I'd be happy to be a piece of furniture in your house.
There we go, yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Can't plants suffer because at school they say they can?
Plants?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's some misinformation around plants. So suffering actually requires a subjective experience. So you know how it's like something to be you? Like you have your field of vision in front of you, you're like seeing things, you can feel stuff when you touch it. That's what you call a subjective experience. Like it's not like something to be a rug. A rug doesn't have like a mind, right? So what happens is people, there's a conflation, there's a mixing up of intelligence and of actual subjective experience. So when you look at what the science says there, what they're saying is that plants will do things like they'll react to sounds, like the sound. They can make a plant react in certain ways by playing the sound of a bug biting at its leaves. They can, plants can do various like chemical things, like they can signal and do these types of things. But it's not actually that the plant has its own subjective reality. A plant is not suffering. So the simplest way to answer that question would just be to say that the people who are saying that are confusing intelligence and sentience. Yeah. Is that clear, or do you want to ask more so you're fully clear on it?
To feel anything, you need nerves and a brain. And plants have neither, and animals have both. So that's important to remember, because like you said, plants do react to things, but they're not feeling it. Like your brain is where you process all your feelings. Your nerves is what sends the signal to your brain, and every animal has a very similar nervous system.
Here's another way I can put it. You probably don't think like computers suffer right now, do you? No, yeah, I mean, probably not. I mean, if you do, then. What we can replicate the kind of things that are supposedly plant suffering in computers, right? We can get a computer to respond to heat stimulus like fire. We can get a computer to respond to a sound like a crunching, but none of that actually demonstrates that the computer is suffering, right? It's just reacting. So there's a confusion there between something displaying intelligent behavior and something actually having consciousness. Displaying intelligent behavior doesn't mean the thing has consciousness. A calculator displays intelligent behavior. It's not conscious. Yeah.
I just want to add one thing, if that's okay. Plants are alive, and I think that's where we start this idea of why plants might feel something. They are definitely alive, and we have to eat something that's alive. Right? So when we look at the difference between plants and animals, we know for sure that animals feel pain. We can think hypothetically, maybe these plants feel pain and we don't know, but that's the focus on what we don't know. So I think we should focus on what we do know for the time being. We know for sure that animals feel pain. So let's keep them off our plates. And if 1,000 years from now we figure something else out about plants and plant sentience, okay, we'll make a decision then.
And one other important thing, oh, sorry, I ruined your clap. Sorry. One other important thing to say, and this is like kind of an element of critical thinking, and they should teach more critical thinking in school, because there's a lot of teaching of like rote memorization, where you're just memorizing topics, not so much learning to think critically. Important kind of principle of critical thinking is you don't assign truth or falsity to something without having some kind of evidence or argument, right? So if I tell you something, like there's a planet out there somewhere that's filled with like purple oceans or something, right there you don't know if that claim is true or false. You don't know what's in every square inch of the universe. You don't know everything that's out there. Maybe there is a planet with purple oceans. You also don't know it's true because you don't have any evidence it exists. So the appropriate position is just to say, I've got no evidence either way. So there's no reason to really think anything here. That's where you always want to start from until someone shows you evidence in another direction. Now, at this point, we have very clear evidence that animals suffer. We have evidence that plants are intelligent. We don't have evidence that they suffer.
I just want to say thanks to everybody. That was amazing. I mean, it was very thought-provoking. So I'm just going to predicate what I'm going to say by, if anybody knows me, I'm very verbose. So I have a few things I want to say, and shut up, Sue. Sue knows me. So anyway, I just since this is thought-provoking, I just wanted to sort of put out there, number one, that there is a difference between philosophy and science, right? So when you're talking about philosophy, it's about ideas and developing ideas, and sometimes those ideas become theories, and sometimes those theories become scientific, right? So we sometimes get caught up in naturalistic fallacy, and that is one of the biggest things that we as humans get caught up in. And it's something we fight against as vegans, right? That we fight against the idea that meat is natural, that we need to have it to survive. And naturalistic fallacy has been used against a lot of groups across history, whether that be women for the right to vote, whether that be black people for being slaves and being less than, people of color. I'm queer, I'm gay, it was used against my community, and now today the trans community is the one that's the big one, right? That everybody wants to attack. So I just wanted to sort of put out there that we, as like going with what Darren was saying earlier, is that we need to be very careful as vegans, that if we are going to talk about, and I've heard this bandied about in our community, that people have a right to free speech, that we want to sort of be careful, because if we're trying to build allegiances and build our community, we got to remember that we're a minority. And those things, when we talk about free speech, if we were talking about, because trans people now seem to be the go-to where we can attack, right? Because naturalistic fallacy, is it truly natural? Those, like I said, those arguments were used against women and people of color and all that through history. If you know your history, going back to what Gabriel was talking about global politics, that you need to understand there's a bigger world out there other than just animal politics. There's a bigger world that informs what we do as animal rights activists. So we need to be very careful about what we talk about when we talk about free speech, because I don't know if you guys saw Camille Labchuk, for any of you who follow her on Facebook. There's an idea that's being put out there to all call us terrorists, right? That's free speech. We fight on behalf of animals, right? They'd be called terrorists. Those same people could be those people who fight on behalf of women, or gay people, or trans people. So you want to be sort of careful you don't get caught up in naturalistic fallacy and confuse philosophy and science. Because I don't think anybody in this room has a degree in science that can talk about hormones and birth and the development of a human being. We don't know that. So let's be quite clear that when we're talking about free speech, what we're really talking about, because if we took trans out and we put women in there, we wouldn't be having a conversation. If we took trans out and put black in there, so let's be careful with what we do in our community. That's the first thing I want to say. Second thing, Gabriel, I'm a political guy. Anybody who follows me on Facebook knows that I'm very much like you. I'm very anti-right-wing, and for a lot of the reasons of things I just spoke about. And I think you had a call to arms. And for our community, it's really important that we get politically active, because you can't live in an echo chamber, right? And I think a lot of people in our community do. They talk to other vegans, they hang around vegans, they only do stuff with vegans. There's a bigger world out there, right? And you have to live and examine life. You have to see the bigger context with things. Because if you lose that context, then you lose the people we're trying to convince to come on our side.
Oh yeah, you're preaching to the choir.
Right? So I just wanted to put that out there, because living in an echo chamber is extremely dangerous, right? You've got to see different perspectives, and you've got to know. I myself, I will watch Fox News. I will go on the Yellow Vest Canada webpage. I will see what they do. I go on Gab.com to see what the alt-right wackadoodles are talking about. Because I sort of want to know. It's called inoculation theory. So you inoculate yourself against what they're saying, so if you're confronted by it, you already have a response, right? If you live in an echo chamber, you don't have that response, and all you do is then you respond with emotion rather than with logic, going back to what you're talking about with logic, right? So if you inoculate yourself, you're connected to the world that you live in, you're going to be a better advocate and a better activist on behalf of animals, as well as all sentient beings.
I think we have our next VEDTalks speaker.
And I just wanted to say too that Gabriel and Nick, right? Is it Nick Lahey? Kevin, sorry, Kevin. I just want to put out there that both of your arguments, while great, are predicated on the idea that we have 60 years left. Anybody who's followed the news recently about climate change, I don't know if we have that long. So I just want to put out there, this is to a call to action for everybody sitting in this room, as well as the fact that Alec and I are also part of a group called Extinction Rebellion. Some of you may know what's been happening in the news, what happened in London, how they shut down London. But the fact is that we probably don't have, the scientists are saying we have 12 years to change irreparable harm to our climate. So if we don't have that time, and there's going to be climate chaos, which means there's going to be a lot of things happening. And when you have chaos, humans don't respond to chaos very well. That's when fascism rises. That's when rights go away, right? That's when people like us are targeted, right? All you got to do is look at human history. So I encourage all of you to continue fighting for animal rights like we're all going to do, but also get involved in the climate cause and get involved in fighting back. Because we need everybody in this room, not only your bodies, but everybody in this room to talk to other people. Because I'm going to suggest that we have way less than 12 years, because the science is pretty clear that we're moving into climate chaos pretty quickly. We even have Doug Ford saying that it was climate change that created all the floods that are happening in Montreal and Quebec and Ottawa and Bracebridge. And so like I said, live that examined life, get involved in politics, know the larger world around you, because that will just make you not only a better activist, but a better human being. That's all I have to say.
To build on that point, I also don't like the idea of a countdown. Like, I agree, 12 years, a recent Harvard study said only 6 years to prevent total collapse of the Earth's climate. But us, people who recognize the lives of animals have value. For a polar bear who was swimming for 8 days straight in the Arctic Ocean looking for ice and drowned and is at the bottom of the Arctic Ocean, it's too late. For an elephant that died of thirst in Africa, or a lion that died of thirst because Africa's desertifying, it's too late. So I hate the idea of a countdown. You know, there's also humans who have died as a result of climate change already. It's just emergency right now. And if we're going to go as fast as possible, building on your idea, there's one of the key ideas I want to get out to the vegan community, other than voting, other than calling vegan meat meat and calling dead animals, and stopping to call that meat. So you talk about a cow burger versus, you know, a delicious vegan burger, etc. The other idea is the idea of targeting the low-hanging fruit. To get to 51%, how do we do it as fast as possible? You can sit there and argue all day with a trophy hunter if, like, you get off on arguing with people and, like, maybe you get through to him, but probably not. Whereas if you go talk to a Democrat, a liberal, an environmentalist, you know, a human rights activist, they have, like, from personal experience, they're not going to argue with you. They're probably just going to agree with you. And then you're just going to talk about, hey, where do we get burgers from? Where do we get it? Then you just get straight into the practical of like, oh, it was B12 an issue? I don't know. And then bang, you know, and they come on side. This is happening in a big way already. So I just want to encourage us, like, you're right. There's too much of an echo chamber. I'm guilty of that too. So we should branch out more and think, okay, who's gonna, environmentalists for sure, Extinction Rebellion, we know
Animal
that,
lovers.
yeah, animal lovers, veterinarians, you know, think about who's the quickest, who's gonna be the easiest, and don't worry about arguing. If it seems too easy, who cares? The animals just want to stop getting slaughtered, you know, so go for what works fastest.
I want to get in there with one or two things. So one is just a nitpick. I think you're confusing the naturalistic fallacy and the appeal to nature. So appeal to nature is where you say something's good derives from it being natural. Naturalistic fallacy is jumping the is-ought gap. So that's saying because of some set of descriptive claims, some normative claim is true. So that's just a nitpick, but I'll just take you to mean the appeal to nature. And then the only other thing I had to say was just with the free speech stuff. I mean, I don't know exactly what your position is there, but we do want to be very, very careful when we talk about limiting free speech. You know, that can blow back. We don't want to, for example, give the government the power to limit free speech. Then, I mean, have a conservative government voted in that regulates against the free speech of groups that you, in fact, want to have free speech. So, you know, I understand there's nuance there. I understand that you could maybe, you know, say you talk utilitarianism. You can make some case, possibly, that there's a given type of speech that actually has a net negative outcome. And at that point, a utilitarian is just going to say, yeah, let's just get rid of it, right? So I understand there's nuance there. I understand you can make a case about certain types of speech. And we already say certain things are illegal, like false advertising isn't covered under free speech. You know, you can't yell fire in a burning building. You can't incite violence. You can't threaten people. So I'm all about the nuance, but just cautioning. We want to be very, very careful when we are critical of free speech. We want to know exactly what we're saying and not push quickly for some kind of restriction on free speech that might blow back and mess with us in a way that we don't want. But I agree with a lot. I agree with a lot of what you said.
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
So, just if I can respond to that, 100%. I'm not talking about limiting free speech. I'm just saying when you're just excusing people for what they say about free speech without challenging it, right? And that's what I've sort of seen happens in our community. Well, they have a right to say that because it's free speech. Well, I'm thinking, yes, but is it, like I said, if I were to use the N-word, if I were to say about a woman and to talk about derogatorily because I'm a cis man, and I would say to a cis woman that she has a certain place in society, there'd be pushback, right? There usually would be, right? There's certain things that we're not going to accept, right? There's certain things we're not going to accept. But then there are other groups, whether they be, like I said, if you look at the trans military ban, what's happening now, it's happening in the States where trans people are losing their rights. I mean, people assume that because they have rights that they are immutable, right? That's not true, right? You just look what happened with Doug Ford, right? Doug Ford used the notwithstanding clause. I know a lot of people don't know about politics, but the thing is, though, is that just because you have rights today doesn't mean they stand. Nazi Germany, did the Jews know they weren't going to have rights?
Yeah, rights can get taken away. Yeah.
Rights can get taken away. So if you're ignorant enough to not know about politics, and you just sort of think, well, I have a right to do that and stand by that, and come from an emotional place, and that's what I'm trying to say. Come from an emotional place. If you're not standing for your rights, if you're not standing for the rights of others, right, and you're not pushing back when you're saying, when you notice something is wrong, then you become part of that problem. That's what I'm trying to say.
Sure. Yeah. Well. Yeah. I mean, I'll keep it quick, but I I definitely agree. We want to, of course, stand up for rights for everybody. I mean, it doesn't matter who you're talking about. Different races, different sexual orientations, different. You know, I don't even know, like transgender people, whatever you want to talk about, you know, support rights for everybody, of course. And, you know, I'm well aware of what the alt-right has to say. For anyone who doesn't know, we run a Discord server. You're all welcome there. You can find a link to it on my channel. And, you know, we have lots of debates in there. It's a big philosophy, logic, debate community. And, you know, we get, like, crazy ethno-state, alt-right lunatics coming in there talking about, you know, making the United States into, like, a white ethno-state. Like, yeah, so I mean, I know what they say. I know the arguments. I know what they're talking about with the crime stats, and I know how they do it. But so what was my core thing I wanted to say there? yeah, I'm not fond of these kind of ideas. Like the alt-right, if they ever came into power, and by the alt-right, you know, I'm referring to ethno-nationalists. I'm not just referring to the like new wave of right-wing, you know, Trump-supporting kind of reactionary people. Talking about the ethno-nationalists, you know, like I'm half Jewish. They probably want me to leave the country, frankly, so I don't support it at all. But even with those people, I'm very cautious when it comes to limiting their speech. So I was just wondering, like, to see if we really do disagree here, like, can you just give an example of something that you would want to make people like unable to say, or are you just advocating for strong social pressure when people say?
More so that. I mean,
okay,
you're right.
I'm with that. I'm totally with that.
Living in a democratic state, everybody has a right to say whatever they're going to say. But the thing is, though, is that it's being aware of when somebody says something publicly that they're fair game to go after. Right?
Okay, so I think I agree with. I think you're just saying that you want the public to be conscious and hold people responsible. You're not actually advocating for like trying to restrict the free speech of the alt-righters.
Well, really, Isaac, what I'm trying to say to this group, because we are all a minority that's fighting for a very large majority that doesn't have a voice, and that if we sort of look at ourselves through the lens of women's rights, gay rights, civil rights, right? All those movements have had pushback like we get, the same thing. And we're living in a time right now where Trumpism, Fordism, where if you look at the Canadian map right now, the majority of Canada is conservative, right? And we can easily fall into that into the next federal election, right? And we know that conservatives are not as fond of having free speech, right? They're fond of having free speech for certain people, but not necessarily for having others. Right?
I don't know the stats there. I just don't know the answer.
All you got to do is look throughout history.
I'll grant it for the sake of
right throughout history, right? When they try to quash anything, whether it be women's rights or civil rights or gay rights. I just came from a movie about killing patient zero and the Reagan administration, what it did to my community about the AIDS epidemic. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. All I'm trying to say is that for our community to be quite aware that if we as activists want to maintain our rights, that we got to be very cognizant of when other people are trying to take those rights away from others.
Yep, totally agree.
That's all I'm trying to say.
Sure,
Right.
totally.
And
Yep.
I'd like to, one more question, if anybody had a question, I'll give you a chance.
I actually wanted to ask Gabe if he had any plans on asking Trudeau to go vegan.
100%. So I'm coming to Nation Rising, and I plan on going to Justin Trudeau's house and filming a video outside his house.
Nice.
Dear Justin Trudeau, and basically telling him straight up, you need us. You need the animal rights community.
That's how you're gonna do
If
it.
you're going to keep the conservatives out, we're going to keep the conservatives out of power. You need us. This is what we care about. We don't really like the fact that you are taking our tax money and giving it to people to club baby seals to death. We're not okay with that. And I bet you're not even okay with that. You're just doing it because it's been going through history. We're not okay with you supporting the dog fur industry. We're not okay with you supporting tar sands pipelines, etc. But we're rational people and we recognize you know what to do it. And you may not be able to change X, Y, and Z overnight. But if you really care about climate change, you really care about healthcare, then you could be a real leader. Set a personal example, go vegan, and I really hope that Game Changers is out by then, and we could refer him to it, because I'm sure, you know, that'll do a better job persuading him than I will. And then, yeah.
Well, Joseph Pace is right here in Toronto.
Yeah, and hopefully they got the connections to do it. And I just advocate, like, I have a series of videos doing it. I taught Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Nye the Science Guy, the rapper Logic. I'm going to do the next one for Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders. So, but I'm one person. So I really encourage people, if you see a celebrity, a famous person, you think, hey, this person and their followers are really already on board, but they're not vegan yet, then reach out to them. Because that's the low-hanging fruit. That's easy. Go for them. We could think, I'm sure everyone has an offhand. And if it's a celebrity that you already feel a personal connection to because you like their stuff. I love Jerry Seinfeld. Yeah. Jerry Seinfeld had a whole episode, you know, where he was talking, he didn't really like the taste of meat and stuff like that. And I'm not going to make an ethical argument to him. I'm just going to be like, Jerry, I love your comedy. I want you to live to be 200 years old and make me laugh, you know, for a long time. And I can say that to Seinfeld because I'm obsessed with his stuff, you know. I love the rapper Logic. I love his music. So, you know, if you feel a personal connection to someone, your phone has a camera on it, you know, put out a video. You never know. It might actually get through to them. And if it doesn't get through to them, it'll get through to their fans. So, you know.
And Kevin, I think were you wanting to add something?
The one thing I wanted to add, I was gonna say when I first started speaking was this is the first time I'm saying this publicly. I worked on the Obama campaign in 2008 and 2012, so you can see where my allegiance lies. And the one thing they taught us as an activist and knocking on doors trying to get people to sway their vote was to never spend time with somebody who was already committed to the other guy, to Mitt Romney or to whoever else was running. And so I think that there's a lot to learn from. Trust me, they spend a lot of money trying to figure out how to persuade someone to go the other way. And so because our time is limited, because all of us are limited in our resources, that we should find the people who are willing to listen and spend our time with them. And I'm not saying completely dismiss the people who are hardcore hunting meat eaters. You can still have a conversation with them, but don't expect too much back from that. Make your point and let it go, and focus on the people who are interested. And I think that's a way more effective way to be an activist.
I'll throw something in on that too. Just do note that there are crazy people out there who currently support things that are just insane. Like there's people who support abolishing anti-murder laws. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but it is a reality. There are actually people like that out there. So it's not the case that we need to persuade everyone at all. You talked about critical mass a bit. All we need is just enough people on our side, to just legislate against the crazies. And we'll just do the same thing we've done with murder. If you are someone right now who doesn't agree with anti-murder laws and you go murder someone, you're just going to jail, and it doesn't really matter what you think. So let's get there.
All we need is 5%, remember. We're already at 46%, which is incredible. A lot of people support what we're doing, but they continue to eat animal products. And I think the majority of those people do it out of convenience. They don't want to go against the grain. They want to go with the flow. They want to be part of society's norms at the time.
Well, humans are herd animals, right? So we always follow what the rest of the herd's doing.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
We kind of step back to see what they're doing, and then when enough of them start doing something, oh, okay, this must be all right.
And it's intriguing that there are so many of us who are ready for the entire herd to shift. Because if we do it collectively, if we make a vegan world together, it's a big difference from one person becoming an individual vegan. It seems unfair that, and I understand this point, I'm obviously a vegan, but for people who don't want to be vegan as an individual, it's harder. They think it's harder because everyone else gets to eat whatever they want, and I have to sacrifice. That's not fair. But if we do it together, if we do it collectively, now they're in. They're ready to vote for that. There's a lot of people like that already.
I just had one last question.
It wasn't a question actually, it's just a follow-up to Shulman's earlier. If anybody has time tomorrow, Liz White is going to be in Hamilton from 1 to 4 p.m. She's going to be talking about, she's going to have a discussion on ending cosmetic testing in Canada, speaking specifically to Bill S-214. There's going to be a musician there who's volunteering his time and his talents. It's going to be a finger food potluck, and it's at the Hamilton Regional Indian Center on 34 Ottawa Street North in Hamilton. Coven has opened the vegan grocery store in Hamilton down the street, about 5 minutes away, about 5 minutes away from 12 to 4, so you can go in Coven and then go to the Indian Center. If you're coming in for the vigil in the morning, Toronto Pig Save is doing a vigil from 10 to 12, so if you're already come in for that, just keep going along 15 more minutes to Hamilton and join this discussion and show your support. Go to Coven, make a full day of it. If anybody needs more information, I can give you the event page on Facebook. I don't know if they posted it on Animal Rights Toronto or not. I didn't look. I should have.
Scott, want to say one more thing?
Just sort of building on what you're saying, for those who want to get involved politically, Ford's done a lot of nasty things. Darren's laid some of the stuff out. Anybody who watched the news knows what Ford's done. One thing that he's trying to do is, and this is going to affect us, is he's trying to pass an anti-protest law. Yeah. So nobody can protest at Queen's Park. So this is what I'm saying, where we can lose our rights. Right? So on May 1st, across Ontario, but there's going to be a big one here, there's going to be, because May 1st is the International Day of Workers, May Day, there's going to be a huge protest at Queen's Park. So if you're interested, there is an event page. There's already thousands of people across Ontario that's going to be protesting on May 1st to say that we have a right to protest. It's going to be happening at Queen's Park here in Toronto, but if you're somewhere else outside of Toronto, there's going to be a lot of them. I know one's going to be starting in Orangeville if you're from that area as well. But it's popping up all over the place. Look up General Strike. It's on Facebook, and I hope to see you.
I just want to say one more thing. I want to thank Diane for she's sitting right back there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Diane.
if I could open up my space for you, which I'm thrilled to have done. And I have a kind of unusual request. If any of you feel comfortable carrying a chair up or downstairs, because there was a lot of time and energy spent setting all of this up, these go up to the 3rd floor onto the deck.
Oh, then you get to see that beautiful.
And then these ones go down to the ground floor. So if anyone feels comfortable and inclined to take one either way on their way as they're heading out, that would be really appreciated by me and everyone who's been setting up.
Thank you, everybody.
If anyone wants to sign up for Central Rebellion, I've got my computer downstairs for being on the mailing list. I would love to get people involved.
Thank you very much. Thank
Hello! Concert 6:30 outside the Morrissey concert. We're doing outreach and petitioning for the for Canada.Is.I right
This is Ray Kowalchuk, recording live for Jane Unchained. This has been the first VED Talk, the vegan TEDTalks, and we've had 3 talks, 3 presentations, and a panel discussion. This was the panel discussion following the 3 presentations. So look on Jane Unchained, look on Jane Velez-Mitchell on Facebook, and find the other recording, and you can see the first 3 TED Talks for vegans, the VEDTalks. And there was just an announcement that there will be tabling by PETA and other. The Toronto Pig Save will be tabling at the Morrissey concert in Toronto, which is kind of a fun thing, and might get a chance to stream live a little bit from there. So this is Ray Kowalchuk signing off for Jane Unchained Canada. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,